It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's another Superman movie. Yeah, it's another Superman movie. And this character has been put to film Lord knows how many times. I don't know, it's directed by James Gunn, so hopefully it'll look at least decent. Here is Superman.
Are you being serious right now?
Yeah.
You'd let me interview you as Superman.
Sure.
Ready?
Let's do it, Cronkite.
Superman.
Miss Lane.
See, clearly he doesn't have the glasses, so he's clearly Superman.
For what some
It's a
might.
lot of
It's a lot.
See, they changed that in the teaser trailer. His eyes didn't blink
Secretary of
before.
Defense said he was going to look into your actions. That's funny.
My actions? I stopped a war.
Maybe.
Not maybe. I did.
In effect, you illegally entered a country.
This is how you're gonna be?
Oh,
Not
we're going
the
that
one
route,
being
maybe?
interviewed, Superman. Did you consult with the president?
Oh, there's Lex Luthor. I mean, I like Nicholas Hoult. I mean, he does pretty good
Acting
mostly.
As a representative of
I
the
wasn't
United States
representing
will
anybody
cause
except for
more
me
problems around the world.
and doing good.
I would question myself in the same situation and consider the consequences.
People were going to die.
See, those poor people are always put in the crossfire when it comes to Superman.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Get him, Superman. Hey, they actually got the Superman theme. That's kind of cool. Oh, there's Crypto. Sweet.
Your choices. Your actions. That's what makes you who you are.
Aw, there's Pa Ken. Don't get too attached, probably.
Superman. He's not a man. He's an it.
See, I feel like that kind of
Somehow
captures
become
Lex
focal point of the
Luthor in
entire
some
world's
way.
Conversation.
Oh, there's Green Lantern, there's Hawk Girl.
Not
Man, we're throwing a lot in here, aren't we?
except that.
I cleaned your boots. I'll go get them for you.
Why are you taking a selfie? Why? I mean, it's kind of funny, but at the same time, like, what? I kind of like the design of the S there. That's kind of cool.
You have a dog?
Film for IMAX, that would be pretty awesome to see, not gonna lie. Okay, so my thoughts are, it looks like they're gonna try to capture what makes Superman a very unique character. I mean, yeah, in some ways he's a little generic, I think, because he has like a bunch of different powers. Well, I guess I shouldn't say he's generic. I take that part back. But James Gunn usually has a pretty good rep with comic book movies, especially when he did the Suicide Squad and the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. So hopefully fourth time's the charm, I think it is. This is his fourth comic book movie. He usually does pretty good with this kind of stuff. Looks like we're getting a lot in this movie, and I'm gonna be honest, I actually don't mind that at all. I think this looks pretty silly, but it could be a ton of fun at the same time. I'm honestly getting tired of this, like, oh, we need to be brooding and depressing. Like, no, like, have some fun with it.
Hey, quit messing around.
I'm not messing around. I'm doing important stuff.
But also still honor the characters. So I think that's what James Gunn is gonna try to do here. So I'm planning to see this in Dolby. That should be a lot of fun. And when I go see it, I will give you all my general thoughts afterwards. Hello everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Real Film Talk. My name is Will Braunlich, and today I have a special guest joining me. You guys know him from his show Cartoon Gateway, and he came onto my set for Deadpool and Wolverine, and he's joining me for the 2025 Superman. It is none other than David Hollander. David, thank you very much for joining me.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad I got the chance to be here. SCM's a resident superhero and cartoon liking person, so I believe I have something to add to this.
Absolutely. So the new Superman movie is written and directed by James Gunn. We all know him from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and it stars David Cornsweet as the new Man of Steel. And basically the whole premise is that Superman is trying to evade or stop Lex Luthor from a new evil plan, who's played by Nicholas Hoult in this movie, as well as trying to, trying to find his identity with the people of the world, I guess you could say.
That's a fair summary, yes, I'd
Yep.
say. We are gonna keep spoilers to a minimum, but there is gonna be a chunk of it, correct me if I'm wrong, there is gonna be a chunk of this that's gonna have a lot of spoilers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, part of this will be spoiler-free, but I'm sure most of you have seen this movie already, but we'll give you our general thoughts. And then the second part of this is episode will have some spoilers in it. So I should ask you first, so what is your knowledge? Because knowing the animation, I'm sure it's a good amount of knowledge about Superman.
Yeah, I'll say that I've been exposed to Superman quite a bit, and while I am a comic book fan, my exposure for a lot of these characters does come from cartoons first, as one would expect. Those were kind of my gateway into comics in the first place. So most of my knowledge of Superman, it comes from, say, Superman the Animated Series, the works of Bruce Timm and whatnot. Though, of course, I sat through Smallville as long as I could, and I don't know why I stopped, but that's I'll admit Superman is not up there, but he's got competition would be my point. Don't dislike the character by any means, I want to be clear about that. Superman has always been a hero I've been aware of, he's been a hero I've learned a lot about over the years, and I am very glad to see well represented here, and of course, with flying colors, basically that applies to pretty much everyone that appears in this movie. Like, not just Superman, but the extended cast of characters that get addressed, both familiar and hero and civilian and villain, whatnot. Would you say would you say you agree with that, or?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And you could definitely agree that when you look at the trailer for this movie, they throw a lot at you, which I didn't mind a lot, but I also feel like that's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Now, for my knowledge of Superman, it's kind of like yours, because I did watch a little bit of the animated shows, but most of my knowledge came from the movies, of course. Obviously, the ones with Christopher Reeve, we all know him as the OG Superman. We know the Superman Returns, there's the show Superman and Lois, which after watching a little bit of, I might have to watch at some point. We got Henry Cavill, who had a huge fan base and arguably one of the most polarizing movies ever to come out in history.
That'd be fair.
And now we got David Cornswet, who's playing a new Man of Steel, who I was a little bit skeptical, but tried to be optimistic about. And I have to say, I really liked this movie, and I have to say one of the biggest stars was David Cornswet. He absolutely sells the whole Man of Steel role. I say Man of Steel, and my brain goes to the Zack Snyder film with the same name. But I mean, just like the whole big blue Boy Scout who can't even bring himself to cuss because he was a good little boy, effectively. Yes.
He sells that. He sells the character's strength. He sells the character's, I want to say stoicism, but I don't think that's quite the right word I'm looking for. He sells the integrity. That was the word I'm looking for. He sells the character with strength and integrity, but also just the more lighthearted nature of the character. It gives us more emotional range than we're used to than Superman in most pieces of media. And that goes across the gamut from comics to cartoons and movies.
Yeah, and it's actually funny because normally in Superman, we usually hold him on like this high of a pedestal. And this movie, much credit to James Gunn, knocks him down a few pegs, making him a more relatable hero, making him more down to earth, having him really connect with the people of Metropolis and of the world.
That's something that I think was rather a necessity for the film to work, and I do think that it can't speak.
That's okay.
I think that it worked really well. But one of the criticisms you will often see of people writing Superman is that he's a hard character to work with because, he's just super good all the time, has very few weaknesses, hard to lose. So what the film does is just make him a tad more human, give him a tad more emotions, give him a bit more range to work with so an audience can connect with him more. You totally can work with an overpowered character if the audience can connect with him, and that's exactly what the movie does.
Yeah, definitely. And we do see that he has real emotions and that he does really show compassion for the people that he's desperately trying to protect from all sorts of evil. And we do get a lot of evil here, most of it comes from Nicholas Hoult, played by Lex Luthor, who I honestly think was another strong part of this whole movie.
Yes, I can't help but agree. Nicholas Holt's performance was phenomenal. Great actor I've seen in a lot of different places, but Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor really redefined a lot of the character for me. Because when I think of specifically Lex Luthor, I always go to the Superman the Animated Series, Justice League Unlimited, one voiced by Clancy Brown, and it's a very different vibe from that Lex Luthor, but it's still equally recognizable as the character. Just the absolute lengths this man will go to be petty, and that absolutely encapsulates the character. The evil, but I hesitate to spoil.
Yeah, and obviously people know from the original movies, there's Gene Hackman, who played Lex Luthor in the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. We have Kevin Spacey, who played Lex Luthor in Superman Returns. And we obviously got Jesse Eisenberg in Batman v Superman, which we unfortunately have to acknowledge is, I think, the worst Lex Luthor to ever put the film.
You're not gonna get any argument from me on that. I have rants, but I'm gonna spare you that because that's not what we're here to talk about.
Yes, but so those two obviously capture of what makes the characters unique and special, but were there any other performances in this movie that really stood out to you?
You'll have to forgive me because a lot of I was a foolish little child and did not read up on the actors' names, but well, I remember one, Nathan Fillion, who is playing who has voiced Green Lantern in other media, though is obviously not. That was Hal Jordan, the one that you're more likely seeing if you're a Justice League fan. Here, playing Guy Gardner's Green Lantern, doing a fantastic job as one would expect. But of course, the performances for all the heroes across the board, and I do again apologize because I had not committed their names to memory, but specifically Mr. Terrific. I have stuff to say about him, but I imagine that'll be for later.
Yeah.
The other performances even the civilian characters like Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen, I loved their performances for how they carried the characters. But as for the other heroes, specifically Hawkgirl, who I don't know if you're aware of this, but the actress who played Hawkgirl actually said in an interview, if I recall correctly, that she took influence from the portrayal from the Justice League animated series of the 2000s, which if you're gonna take any influence from any version of Hawkgirl across media, that one in particular. And of course, Metamorpho, who this is a character I'm very proud to say. I have always been a fan of this. He's always been a sleeper favorite character of mine, and I'm proud to say this character has as much humanity in his left pinky as most characters you will find in a superhero movie. It is staggering how well a lot of these characters translate, and the actors do a phenomenal job with that. Though, of course, the main stars would be Superman, Lex, to a slightly lesser extent, Lois.
Yeah.
But that's all I have to say without getting into like the nitty-gritty of the characters themselves, how they translate and whatnot.
Yeah, and I do admit that they do give some pretty good chemistry between Superman and Lois. Obviously, they're one more iconic comic book duos or couples ever. And I guess you could say this is kind of early on in their relationship. And you really see the struggles that they have to go through together.
Yeah, it's not like, you're not just dropping us into this relationship like as it's already happening. Like, we have seen that approach. And of the approaches we've seen where it's just like, oh, you see the relationship starting out. My Adventures with Superman, I believe, is the show that really put a lot of legwork into that relationship as we see the two characters meet. This movie kind of takes a different approach and just drops us, not at the beginning, but towards the beginning. Only a few months in, if I recall correctly. I did not keep track of the analytics of Superman and Lois Lane's relationship, but I do think that carries quite a bit of the movie as well.
Yeah. Now, I have to ask this. Knowing James Gunn's reputation and how well this movie is doing with critics, audiences, and apparently box office, because I think this is now having one of the biggest openings or weekends or just how it's doing right now, money-wise, is probably one of the best that any superhero movie or comic book movie has done in a long time.
Yes.
Would you say this is the right track for the start of this new DC universe?
I do think that in terms of film, James Gunn really did put his best foot forward with this. I mean, who else are you going to start with if you're making literally every attempt we've seen so far for a shared universe of films, in live action at least, has started with Superman films, and James Gunn really sold me on not just his world, but his interpretation of the character, interpretation of many characters, And with the stated, though that does come with the stated intent that James Gunn has said elsewhere as he is supervising this, that each film and project in this is going to have a rather distinct tone. And that's something we're already seeing in action with Creature Commandos, which is another project of James Gunn's, which is part of this shared continuity, which is a very different beast from Superman by every regard. And I think with this movie already sold me on this universe, and that combined with the fact that we know he's not just pulling the sentiment out of the air when he says every project is gonna have a different tone, different style. That's really sold me on it, because I think one of the big things I think about superhero fatigue is the homogeneity of the films. And I think we can safely say that that is, at least at this point, that doesn't seem like to be the route they're going. And I am very excited to see where they go with this, both for as a fan who wants to see these characters translate well, and as a cinema goer who just really likes to see good superhero movies.
Yeah, I agree. I will say though, my two biggest complaints are, one, this is gonna sound a little bit of a nitpick, but I feel like it kind of has the typical James Gunn humor where the comedy was a little bit distracting at times. Because I feel like whenever there tries to be a very serious moment, it's usually followed up by a joke. I actually read one comment that says, "Please don't let Batman be directed by Taika Waititi."
Yeah.
Because that would be like a huge
Similar style, yeah.
Yep. And also, I feel, when I mentioned how there was a lot going on in this movie being both a good and a bad thing, it's a good thing, like, it felt like they were having fun with this, but also at the same time, it almost felt like I was watching two separate movies at once.
It feels like the movie's a little eclectic.
Yeah.
And frankly, while I do agree with that, I also don't think it's that big a knock against a movie, because I do like to see a lot of concepts explored. And as for the other thing you mentioned, the tone, I do think that that is something that, I'm just gonna say this right, if you're not a fan of if you actively despise James Gunn's style of writing for whatever reason, I'm unsure if this movie will actively sell you on that specific style of writing. But I do think with everything else it's selling, like that's not too big of a compromise to make. Yeah, I do think that is something worth acknowledging, but I'm not too bothered by it because I already enjoyed the rest of the movie anyway.
All right. So, real quick, before we go into spoilers, what rating would you give this, spoiler free?
Out of 10 or out of 5?
Let's go out of 10.
Okay, I would give this a solid 8. Okay, I said solid and immediately my brain went to a fraction. 8.5, I'd say.
Okay.
If only I've been spoiled recently by a lot of good superhero movies, both in cinemas now and just watching them in my free time, and I think I can safely say that this is already definitely up there. If not a 9 out of 10, at least an 8.
Yeah, I would say an 8. Normally I do grades, so if I had to pick a grade, it would probably be between like a B+ or an A-. I think that's perfectly fair.
Yeah, that's a perfectly fair grade.
Yep. All right, so now we are going to go into the spoiler section of this review. So if you don't want to be spoiled, please click to a certain part of the review. So you have been warned. So
you can no longer sue us for, well, if you were gonna sue us, then I question your sanity.
All right, so basically, if you watch the teaser trailer, the one where it starts off with Superman crashing into the Arctic, that's pretty much how the movie starts. He loses a fight for the first time, and that's the scene where Krypto brings him to his Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, it's how the movie opens.
Yeah, and we're introduced to these robots. Some of them, we actually have some Marvel characters introduced in here. We have Michael Rooker playing one of the robots. We have, I'm blanking on her name. She played Mantis in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Her name escapes me, but I do know who you're talking about. Also, Alan Tudyk, who is just a phenomenal voice actor and actor across the board, voicing one of the robots. 4, I think it was? 4,
but then they end up giving him a name later in the credits.
Yes, I saw that. That's Gary, if I recall correctly. Yes.
Now, another thing that is important is that we have a message from Superman's parents, which a very clever casting, hidden, having Bradley Cooper play Jor-El in this. Now, the clever part they have is that it's in a secret language that not even Superman can detect. Well, to be fair, he couldn't detect because he didn't learn the language.
Yeah, he can't translate it, but the computers and the robots translate most of the message. It's the very typical protect this world you are going to, sort of stand up for the people sort of message that you've come to expect from Superman's origin and whatnot. with the caveat being that most of the message was damaged and Superman has only ever heard the first half.
Yes, and Lex and his minions are able to infiltrate the Fortress of Solitude. And it seems like they altered the message a little bit to try to get the people to actually turn on Superman.
Yeah, indeed, it's a plot point that they play the second half of the message, which is effectively rule over these people. And admittedly, the film is a little ambiguous as to whether or not Lex has actively changed the contents of the message or whether or not it's just completely translated. Admittedly, it is a little ambiguous, though it does seem to be the intent that that was the actual message. Admittedly, that caught me off guard, though though to my knowledge, between Smallville and there's another place where this was the case, and I'm blanking on the name, but there is precedent for this kind of change where it turns out Superman's family specifically weren't exactly the most benevolent, so do with that what you will. That was a rather strange choice, but not necessarily a bad one.
So they're probably gonna save that for another movie, considering this does
I think I can guess what that next movie's gonna be, but I'm gonna stop for that. Yeah.
Yes, so which I actually have to give this movie credit. It doesn't automatically tease for a future movie.
Yeah, if you watch the film, you will note that the post-credit scenes for the movie are both effectively jokes or just last shots of the movie.
Yeah.
Neither of which are direct teasers for anything in particular, which I do like. I do think it's a good practice to get into to stop just teasing the next stuff. I mean, no shade on the MCU. I quite like the MCU, but I mean, how many post-credit scenes ended up not going anywhere for like 6 years?
Well, I know one of the biggest problems with the DC Extended Universe when it started out with Zack Snyder's Man of Steel is that they tried to focus on teasing the next 3 movies rather than making one actual good one.
Yeah, absolutely. I clowned on Marvel, but to be fair, DC also had that problem for a while. I mean, Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor and Deathstroke on a boat.
That went absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, that went nowhere. And a bunch of other stuff we don't really need to mention. It's a rather common flaw of superhero movies, just because of the need to propagate a franchise is to tease the next thing. And while this movie does that and leaves a few compelling doors open, there's no overt tease for anything coming next.
Yep. And aside from, the new extended characters we get, Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, and Green Lantern, we get a couple other cameos. We got Maxwell Lord, we got Peacemaker in this. And we actually mentioned this before we started filming this. If you watch the movie, that there was a scene where they're evacuating Metropolis for Lex's evil plan, which is basically just creating a crack through
Split the world in half.
Yeah, because at that point he's just like, I give up.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more that happens in that.
Obviously, yeah.
I don't think we can manage to fit everything in this.
Yep, and the tease being that as people are evacuating, you can see a certain road sign pointing to Gotham City, which that's compelling. We don't know exactly when whatever Batman project this universe makes will materialize, but that's tease enough.
Maybe they'll bring in Robert Pattinson as Batman?
Maybe. I don't. Last I checked, it seems that they were going to make 2 separate Batman films. One to be a follow-up for The Batman and another specifically for this universe. Because, okay, loose spoilers for Creature Commandos now, we do get a glimpse of Batman in that project, and I'd wager they're not going the Pattinson route. But
yeah. Now, another thing that I think you and I might agree on this. So, one of the big things is that they have this character named Ultraman, who's supposed to be like a challenger to Superman, but later on it's revealed it's just a clone of Superman, and that's how Lex was able to get into the Fortress of Solitude.
By having a clone on him.
Yep, and who did you say that clone could end up being?
I remember predicting ages ago that when there was a character in the movie named Ultraman, which is a name belonging to an evil Superman, wearing a purple uniform and a mask, it was gonna be a Superman clone and it was gonna be Bizarro. And while the film doesn't so much as use the words Bizarro, that is effectively what they do. It's a very satisfying case of character amalgamation, which if you ask me is a lost art, but that's a whole other conversation.
Which is another thing I actually admire. They don't directly call him Bizarro. In fact, I think they probably won't do that if they decide to bring him back, which I'm willing to bet they do, really.
Oh yeah, Bruce Timm's villain death clause, if you don't see the body, they're probably still alive.
Exactly, like that's why I tried telling people, it's like, okay, watch, that guy's end up gonna come back.
Yep, he's gonna come back.
And another thing is that we actually give I don't know if it's ever happened in some of the animated universes, but they actually do give Lex, in the movies at least, a reason to despise Superman. And that's because he envies him in some way.
Yeah, that's sort of a thing where that's usually Lex's motives are more implied than overtly stated. I'd say this is the most overt that they ever get, but there are several events in comics, I think, fans who might recall a time in which Lex straight up was a Superman in the absence of Clark himself. The dude at the core of his character just really wants to be Superman. That is evident in a lot of the characters, well, not just motivation, but actions, but that's a comic book discussion, and while I do know a lot, I am no Encyclopedia Brown or whatever about comics, so...
Yeah, and I did think that Lex Luthor was jealous of Superman in a way, because Superman was getting all the attention, meanwhile his company was not getting anything.
Precisely, yeah. That's usually the root of where Lex's, my brain tried to say 6 words at once, animosity comes from. It's just a place of jealousy, envy, whatnot.
I will say this though, I should have added this in the spoiler-free section, but I could add it now real quick. It looks like they try to go for a bit of a more modern approach to the character of Superman, because now they're introducing Superman to like reacting to all these comments on social media about what people say about him.
Yeah, they have a Superman who's more like paying attention to like not just online media, but also just like world events. And that is a much more modern take on Superman, because like you would have just, I think it was Christopher Reeve's Superman. Yeah, it's been years since I've seen these movies. I recall a scene where he's just super casually fighting someone outside China and the Great Wall breaks or something like that.
That was in Superman 4, which we do not acknowledge.
Okay, yeah, okay, it was that. I forgot which movie.
And he repairs the Great Wall of China
with his vision, super vision of
his wall repairing vision, and then there's his people lowering vision where he fights the Nuclear Man.
Yeah, Nuclear Man. Fascinating case. Nuclear Man is another character who's a Bizarro analog in a lot of ways, but that's unrelated.
Yeah, if you've seen my worst comic book movie episode, you know on how much I hate that movie.
Yeah.
But I ended up really enjoying this movie. I'm looking forward to seeing where they take with this.
I have an idea of something they might do, but for the sake of not keeping this too long, because it's a very wordy prediction, I'm gonna spare all that.
Okay.
It's gonna have something to do with Maxwell Lord and the Justice Gang, but actually, you know what? I'm assuming we're signing off soon.
We're signing off soon, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say this now before I don't get the chance. I think the weirdest takeaway from this movie for me is that I kind of left this movie a Mr. Terrific enjoyer, and like, which is weird because between all the heroes that were in this movie, like Guy Gardner's Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, Metamorpho, like I knew of them from cartoons and was otherwise sold on them from that. Mr. Terrific has never been handled, at least in cartoons, with any degree of like depth or prominence. I think the closest you kind of get was Justice League Action, which featured him prominently in a few episodes, or Justice League versus the Fatal Five, where he was a supporting character and got outshined severely in that movie. And so the movie, I was aware of the character, obviously, didn't have many thoughts on it. I'm kind of walking away from this movie a Mr. Terrific enjoyer. That's the most unexpected thing about this movie.
And I will say this though, aside from like Superman and Lois and the other human characters, Mr. Terrific was the one that was involved in the plot the most.
Absolutely, he has the most involvement in this movie. Actually, there is another hero in this movie that I think went unmentioned. Did you wanna?
Metamorpho?
No, not Metamorpho. I'm talking about the other one, towards the end, you know? Not post-credit scene, but... Not post-credit scene, right before that. Last scene of the movie.
I'm sorry, I'm blanking on...
Supergirl?
Supergirl, yes, so...
You can bleep that if we don't want to spoil that, but...
I completely forgot. So it turns out Superman is watching Krypto, who you've obviously seen in this movie, for his cousin Kara, Supergirl.
Yep, they aren't waiting to introduce her in her own movie. She's just already there.
Yep. All right, so...
That's the closest thing the movie gets to a tease for the next thing, because we can logically assume that that's going to be the next DCEU movie.
So that does it for our very lengthy review of Superman. Hope you enjoyed it. David, thank you so much for joining me on this mission.
Glad I got to be here. Glad I got to offer my 2 cents.
All right, so until next time, this is Will Braunlich, and I will see you at the movies. Save a seat for us.
For For over 40 years, SCM
has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education,
and live broadcasts.
SCM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings,
and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SCM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SCM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
your schools,
and your government
come together.